Life has this funny way of throwing surprises at you when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened to me, Elizabeth, a 30-year-old paramedic with a passion for saving lives and a knack for getting myself into the most unexpected situations. My life was mostly about rushing from one emergency to another, with little room for anything else. I never imagined that a broken-down car would lead me to the love of my life. It was a scorching July afternoon, and there I was, stranded on the side of the highway, staring at my car's smoking hood like it would magically fix itself if I glared hard enough. That's when he showed up. Jack, with his easy smile and hands that seemed more suited to holding a beer than a wrench. "Need a hand?" he asked, walking up to me with a confident stride that somehow didn't match his casual attire. I must have looked like a mess, hair sticking to my forehead and frustration written all over my face. "Unless you can perform miracles, I doubt it." "This piece of junk hates me," I shot back, more out of my day's frustration than any real annoyance at him. Jack chuckled, a deep, hearty sound that made me take a second look at him. "Let's not call the exorcist yet. I'm pretty handy with cars. Let's see what we've got." I watched, half in disbelief, half in admiration, as Jack rolled up his sleeves and dove into the task. His hands moved with a certainty that was mesmerizing, and I found myself hoping he wouldn't fix the car too quickly. "Looks like your coolant hose decided to call it quits," he said, emerging from under the hood. "I can patch it up enough to get you to a shop." "Thanks, I don't even know what to say." "I'm Elizabeth, by the way," I stammered, extending a hand that he shook with a grin. "Jack. And don't worry about it. Can't leave a damsel in distress on the side of the road, now can I?" As he worked on my car, we started talking. The conversation flowed easily, like we'd known each other for years. He told me about his job as an electrician, his latest project, and I shared tales of my adventures in the ambulance. The more we talked, the more I realized how much I didn't want this to end. With a final twist of his wrench, Jack announced, "All done. She should hold up until you get to the shop." I couldn't help the disappointment from seeping into my voice. "Thank you, Jack. I don't know how I can ever repay you." He wiped his hands on a rag, that ever-present grin still on his face. "How about dinner? I know a place that serves the best burgers in town." My heart raced. Was he asking me out? Just like that? "Are you always this forward with women you've just met?" I teased, trying to mask my eagerness. "Only the ones who look like they could use a good burger and some company," he retorted, his eyes twinkling with mischief. And just like that, I found myself nodding, agreeing to dinner with a man who had turned my terrible day into one of the most memorable ones. Moving in with Jack's mom after we tied the knot seemed like the natural step, especially since my own folks had passed away years ago. Living in that big, somewhat cozy house, I found a second family I never thought I'd have again. Jack's mom, Martha, was a gem. She treated me like the daughter she never had, and our bond was solid. We'd spend hours chatting over coffee, sharing recipes, and just supporting each other through the ups and downs of life. It was comforting, having that kind of connection again. 2 years into this new life, Jack and I welcomed our little boy, Alex, into the world. With him came a joy I couldn't describe, but also a reality check. I hung up my paramedic boots, deciding to stay home and pour myself into raising our son and keeping our home. Jack continued his work as an electrician on those big government projects, always talking about the wires and gears, stuff that flew right over my head. But as the days blurred into a routine of diapers, baby giggles, and family dinners, tension started to brew. One evening, as we sat down for what I hoped would be a peaceful dinner, Jack's frustration boiled over. "Elizabeth, we gotta talk," he started, his voice tighter than the lid on a jar of pickles. "All right, shoot," I said, bracing myself for whatever was coming. I could tell by his tone it wasn't going to be about the weather. "It's about this." He waved his fork around, encompassing the whole house, our life, me. "Don't you think it's time you went back to work? You're losing yourself here." I felt a hot flare of anger at his words. Losing myself? I'm raising our son, Jack. Keeping your home standing. That's not nothing. He sighed, a sound of exasperation that got under my skin. That's not what I mean, Liz. You're more than this. What about your license, your career? You used to save lives. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So what, I'm just boring old housewife Elizabeth now. That it? No, that's not. He tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. Fueled by a mix of stubborn pride and a desire to prove him wrong, I started looking for ways to dip my toes back into the medical field, even if just part-time. It wasn't easy, balancing the demands of home with the search for something that felt like mine, but I was determined. Jack noticed the shift, the late-night job searches, the calls during Alex's nap times. "See, I knew you had it in you," he said one day, a note of "I told you so" in his voice that made me want to throw a cushion at him. "It's not about what you think, Jack. It's about finding a balance," I snapped back, tired of the insinuation that my life before was somehow less valuable. After we settled into the rhythm of our new life, with me juggling part-time work, caring for Alex, and keeping the house in some sort of order, things with Jack started to fray at the edges. He was on the road more often than not, his business trips stacking up one after the other. When he did come home, it was like a storm cloud rolled in with him, dark and ready to burst at any moment. Our house, once a place of laughter and warmth, had turned into a battleground of sorts. The air charged with tension you could almost see. Jack had complaints about everything, from the way I made his favorite spaghetti to the way I spoke, even going as far as to pick at how I dressed and how I was raising our boy. "Elizabeth, what's this mess?" He'd start, the minute he walked in the door, his eyes scanning the living room like he was looking for things to criticize. "And why's Alex still up? He should be in bed." I tried, God knows I tried, to keep everything perfect, to keep the peace. But nothing I did seemed right in his eyes. "I'm doing the best I can, Jack," I'd respond, my voice tired from the endless dance of trying to please him. "Alex wanted to wait up for you. He misses his dad." Jack's response was always sharp, cutting. "Misses me or not, you're the parent here most of the time. You should make these calls, not him." Martha comforted me, saying that Jack was just tired. I wanted to believe her, but sometimes it seemed to me that our marriage was collapsing right before my eyes. The day Martha got really sick was like any other day until it wasn't. I remember getting the call while Jack was off on yet another business trip. When I told him his mom was in bad shape, his reaction floored me. "Elizabeth, can't you handle this? You're the medic," he said, irritation clear in his voice. "I'm up to my neck in work here." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's your mom, Jack. She's really sick. This isn't just some small thing I can fix." With no support coming from his end, I did what I had to do. I got Martha to the clinic, praying it was something minor, something fixable. But fate had a cruel twist in store. The diagnosis was a brain tumor, inoperable. My heart sank. Martha's vibrant spirit didn't deserve this dark turn. As Martha's condition deteriorated, I found myself juggling more plates than I thought possible. Taking care of her, managing the house, raising Alex, it was a balancing act that left me drained. Through it all, Jack was conspicuously absent, his interest in his mother's health seemingly vanished. Eventually, Martha's care needs became too much for me to handle alone. Reluctantly, I arranged for her to move to a specialized care facility. I visited her as often as I could, Alex always in tow. Those visits were bittersweet. Martha, despite everything, remained the warm soul I'd come to love like a mother. During one of our last visits, she took my hand, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and gratitude. "Elizabeth, thank you for everything. I'm so sorry for how he turned out," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Martha, don't. It's not your fault," I replied, my voice thick with unshed tears. But she just smiled, a weary, knowing smile. "You'll see, dear. There's a surprise waiting for you," she said, but refused to elaborate. Not long after, Martha passed away. Jack's absence at his own mother's funeral was the final straw. It was me who arranged everything, me who stood by her grave, saying goodbye to the woman who'd become more of a family to me than my own husband. The world I knew shattered around 2 a.m., when the sound of the front door banging against the wall jolted me awake. My heart raced as I saw Jack stumble in, not alone, but with a woman hanging onto his arm, her smug smile slicing through the dimness of the room. "Elizabeth, get up. We need to talk," Jack slurred, his words soaked in alcohol. Blinking the sleep from my eyes, I struggled to make sense of the scene before me. "Jack? Who's this? What's going on?" "This," he waved at the woman beside him, "is Sheila. She's going to be my wife. You need to pack your stuff and leave. Now." The room spun. "Leave? Jack, it's the middle of the night. Where am I supposed to go with Alex?" I could barely get the words out, my voice a mix of disbelief and rising panic. Jack's expression was cold, detached. "Not my problem. I've been waiting for the right time and now's it. I'm done with you." Fumbling for my phone, I hit record, my mind racing. "Done with me? Jack, what are you talking about? Why do we have to leave our home?" He scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping him. "Our home? No, no. It's my house now. Sheila's and mine. We work together and have fun at the workplace. You should see how we have fun when no one sees us." Sheila, looking around like she owned the place already, didn't hide her triumph. "You heard him. Time to go." I fought the urge to break down. "And Alex? What about your son?" Jack shrugged, his indifference a sharp sting. "He can go with you. Doesn't matter to me. Sheila and I will have our own kids." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I stood there, disbelief and anger warring within me. "Fine," I finally said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. "I'll leave. But this isn't over, Jack." I hastily packed a bag, grabbed the essentials, and carefully lifted Alex from his bed, wrapping him in his favorite blanket. With one last look at the man I no longer recognized, I stepped out into the night, the cool air a stark contrast to the warmth of the bed I'd just been forced from. That night, after Jack had thrown our world into chaos, sleep was a stranger. I sat in the dimly lit hotel room, Alex asleep beside me, oblivious to the storm raging outside and in my life. My mind raced with a million thoughts, fears, and plans. What next? How could I pick up the pieces of a life so abruptly shattered? I reached for my phone, the weight of it suddenly heavy with purpose. I dialed Lisa, a close friend who also happened to work with Jack. If anyone would understand, it would be her. "Hey, it's me," I started, my voice barely above a whisper, not wanting to disturb Alex's peaceful slumber. "Elizabeth? What's up? It's late. Is everything okay?" Lisa's voice was laced with concern, the sleepiness quickly fading. "No, everything's not okay. Jack, he kicked us out. Middle of the night. He's got someone else, Lisa. He said she works with him and he's going to marry her." The words tumbled out, each one a confirmation of the nightmare I was living. "What? Slow down, Elizabeth. He did what?" Lisa was fully awake now, her tone a mix of shock and anger. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, before continuing. "He brought her home, Lisa. Told me to pack up and leave. And I've got it all on audio. I recorded the conversation." "You did what?" "Elizabeth, that's brilliant. Send it to me. We'll figure this out, okay? Don't worry." The relief in hearing Lisa's supportive words was palpable. I sent her the audio recording, a digital testament to Jack's betrayal. We talked plans, next steps, anything that would give me a sliver of hope in the darkness that had enveloped me. The first rays of dawn were breaking through the curtains of the hotel room when my phone buzzed to life. It was an unknown number, and for a moment, I hesitated. My life had been turned upside down, and I half expected more bad news. "Hello?" My voice was cautious, bracing for whatever was coming. "Is this Elizabeth?" The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, yet there was a warmth to it. "Yes, speaking. Who's this?" "My name's Paul Henderson, I'm a lawyer. I was the attorney for Martha, your mother-in-law." Martha. Just hearing her name was a punch to the gut. "Yes, I know Martha. How can I help you?" "It's not how you can help me, but rather how I can help you. Martha left something for you. It's important. Can we meet today?" I was taken aback. Martha had thought of me? After everything that had happened? Yes, of course. When and where? We arranged to meet at his office later that morning. I got Alex ready, my mind racing with possibilities. What could Martha possibly have left for me? Mr. Henderson's office was a beacon of calm in the storm that had become my life. He greeted me with a gentle smile, leading me to a room with 2 chairs and a table. "Elizabeth, thank you for coming. Martha spoke very highly of you. She wanted to make sure you and Alex were taken care of." I nodded, still in a daze. "What did she leave?" Paul handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter in Martha's handwriting. It was her, through and through, thanking me for the love and care I'd shown her, apologizing for Jack's actions, and expressing her wishes for my future. And then Mr. Henderson dropped the bombshell. "Martha left you the house, Elizabeth. The house and a significant portion of her savings." I was speechless. The reality of Martha's gift was overwhelming. In her final days, she had given me a lifeline, a chance to start over. Is this even legal? Can she just cut Jack out like that? I asked, the words barely making it past the lump in my throat. Mr. Henderson nodded firmly. Martha was very clear and took all the necessary legal steps. "The house is yours, Elizabeth. And there's enough in savings to give you a fresh start." I broke down then, tears of gratitude and relief streaming down my face. Martha, even in her final days, had been thinking of me, of Alex. She'd given us a future when it felt like all hope was lost. Barely a day had passed since I'd stepped into Mr. Henderson's office, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, when my phone buzzed with a call from Jack. His voice was like a storm, all bluster and rage. "Elizabeth, get over to Henderson's office now," he bellowed. I could almost see his face, red and twisted in fury. With a deep breath to steady my nerves and Alex in tow, I headed back to the lawyer's office. The atmosphere was electric with tension, Jack and his mistress already there, pacing like caged animals. As soon as I walked in, Jack zeroed in on me, waving a stack of papers like he was trying to fan flames. "What's this crap about, Elizabeth? Why'd my mom leave everything to you?" Mr. Henderson, ever the calm in the storm, interjected. "Please, let's all sit down and discuss this rationally." But rationality had left the building. Sheila, her earlier smugness replaced by a dawning realization, eyed the door like it was her escape route. "The contents of the garage, Jack. That's what your mother left you," I said, finding a strength I didn't know I had. "Everything else, she left to Alex and me." Jack's face contorted even further, if that was possible, a mix of disbelief and fury. "The garage? What am I supposed to do with that junk?" Mr. Henderson handed Jack another document, a letter from Martha. "Your mother had her reasons, Jack. She hoped you'd find it in yourself to understand one day." Jack skimmed the letter, and I watched as the fight seemed to drain out of him, replaced by a sullen, defeated anger. This is bullshit." His mistress, finally seeing the writing on the wall, snapped. "I'm not sticking around for this. I didn't sign up to be with a loser." And with that, she was gone, her departure as dramatic as her entrance into our lives. Jack, now truly alone, turned his frustration back on us. "You'll pay for this. I'll sue. I'll—" Mr. Henderson, unflappable as ever, cut him off. "I'd advise against that, Jack. You won't win, and it'll just waste your time and money." The room went silent, the only sound the soft, uneasy breathing of everyone present. Jack, defeated and alone, finally slunk out of the office, leaving behind the chaos he'd created. In the aftermath of the storm that had upended my life, I found myself standing amidst the ruins of what had once been my world. The divorce proceedings were bitter, with Jack clawing for every inch of ground, especially when it came to Martha's estate. He couldn't seem to grasp that his actions had consequences, that the love and trust he had so carelessly thrown away couldn't be won back in a court of law. "I don't get it, Elizabeth," Jack had said during one of our last encounters outside the courtroom, his tone a mix of confusion and anger. "Why are you doing this? Why can't things just go back to the way they were?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I had once loved so deeply. "Jack, you broke us. You can't sue your way back to a family. Martha saw that, even if you couldn't." His attempts to claim Martha's property were futile, just as Mr. Henderson had predicted. The judge saw through his motivations, and justice, for once, felt truly just. Not only did the property remain with Alex and me, but Jack was also ordered to pay alimony. The audio recording of that fateful night, which I had shared with Lisa in a moment of desperation, turned out to be more than just a cry for help. It spread, as such things do, and soon enough, Jack's actions were laid bare for all to see. His career, once on a steady climb, faltered under the weight of his own misdeeds. Transferred to another branch with a reduced salary, the consequences of his actions finally seemed to catch up with him. His mistress, Sheila, fared no better. Caught up in the whirlwind of her own making, she was fired for misconduct. The workplace, it turned out, was no place for the games they had played. She paid a fine to the construction company, a tangible mark of her wrongdoing. As for me, I found solace in the simple things, the laughter of my son, the warmth of our home, and the support of friends and family. The journey was far from easy, and there were days when the weight of it all seemed too much to bear. But in those moments, I reminded myself of the strength I had found, the strength to stand up for myself and for Alex, to carve out a path toward a future we deserved. Working as a paramedic, I've seen my share of life's thin line between tragedy and miracle. Yet, through it all, a spark ignited within me, pushing me toward a dream I thought was out of reach. With the inheritance Martha left us, that dream's become a tangible goal. I've started studying to become a doctor. It's tough, juggling studies with raising Alex and working, but somehow, we're making it work. Living in the house Martha left us has been a blessing in more ways than one. It's a constant reminder of her love and belief in us. Alex, he's growing up so fast, and every day I see more of the person he's becoming. I've made it my mission to show him there's strength in kindness, intelligence and humility, and bravery and honesty, qualities his father, unfortunately, lacked. I've never badmouthed Jack to Alex. Kids are smart, they see and understand more than we give them credit for. Jack's absence has been a silent testament itself. He's shown little to no interest in being a part of Alex's life, and honestly, we're better off for it. One evening, as I was cracking open the books after putting Alex to bed, he came padding out of his room, a thoughtful frown on his face. "Mom, why doesn't Dad want to see me?" It was a question I'd been dreading, but I was prepared. Sitting him down, I chose my words carefully. "Alex, sometimes people make choices that don't make sense to us. It's not a reflection of you or your worth. Your dad's choices are his own." He nodded, processing this. "I know. I just wish he cared more, you know?" I pulled him into a hug, my heart aching for him. "I know, kiddo. But you've got me, and I've got you. We've got enough love for 10 families. Plus, you've got an army of people who adore you." Alex smiled, a bit of the weight lifted from his young shoulders. "Yeah, I'm lucky, huh?" "You bet," I said, tucking him back into bed. "Now, let's try and get some sleep. We've got a big day tomorrow." As I returned to my studies, I couldn't help but feel a surge of determination. My journey wasn't just for me, it was for Alex, for our future. Becoming a doctor wasn't just a dream anymore, it was a path to making a difference, to showing Alex that no matter what life throws your way, you can rise above, you can succeed. Jack's decision to remain distant might have been a blessing in disguise. It allowed me and Alex to build a life without the shadow of his choices hanging over us. We were free to grow, to heal, and to find joy in the everyday moments.